Which exam will suit you better? Would it be the IELTS or would it be the TOEFL? Knowing which exam is better for you is crucial as to get the highest possible score that you can get and to just feel the most confident during the exam. I have taught students personally for the IELTS and the TOEFL for quite a number of years, and I do have my mixed feelings on both exams. It does depend which sections or how you're feeling as the individual student, but we will break it down all here today and kind of see which exam maybe is better for you. Starting off with the IELTS, it is the International English Language Testing System. As for the TOEFL, it is the test of English as a foreign language. Both can be used for academic purposes, such as studying abroad, or even for work purposes. We will now have a look at every section of both exams and compare them between each other. Starting off with the speaking section. In the IELTS exam, the speaking is called an interview because it is a face-to-face interview where you're having a kind of discussion with the examiner. They ask you questions, very basic questions from part 1 to part 3. Part 1 is very simple, it's very casual questions. Part 2 is very interesting, they give you some time to prepare. And then afterwards you need to speak at length, between 1 to 2 minutes on that given topic. And then part 3 would be the exact same as the topic of part 2. So if part 2 is about traveling, part 3's questions will also be on traveling. You don't need to answer that long. Each question in part 1 and part 3 could be about 40 seconds long on average. Comparing to the TOEFL test, the speaking there is very different. There's 4 parts. The first part will be the only question where you can actually give your opinion. They will ask you about maybe some things that you prefer or some other topics that you might like instead of another topic. So the first part is about yourself. It's an independent question. But parts 2, 3, and 4 are actually integrated questions. And it's very unique because in part 2 and part 3, you first have a reading, then you have an audio, and then you need to summarize. In part 4, it's just an audio or lecture, and you need to summarize it as well. Moving on to the writing section. In the IELTS exam, there are 2 parts, just like the TOEFL exam. However, in the IELTS exam, the first part is with a visual data graph, where you have visual data, such as a line graph, bar chart, pie chart, there's quite a few, and then you need to summarize it coherently. I kind of tell my students that imagine you have a friend who doesn't get to see the visual data. Your essay needs to be so well presented where the student or your friend is able to read your essay and understand exactly what the visual data was about. And the second task is just a simple essay question where you have a topic and you just need to write an essay on it. It could be an opinion-based topic where do you agree or disagree with this topic. So it's very straightforward. And in TOEFL, we also have 2 parts, as I said before. In task 1, you have a reading, and then you also have a listening. It will be on 2 professors speaking about a certain topic. In the reading, the professor can agree to some topic, and then in the listening, the professor could disagree, and you need to summarize it all together. For example, in the reading of task 1 for TOEFL, the professor could be talking about the advantages of deforestation. They could be mentioning things like clearing land for farming, for industries, for living houses. So that makes sense. There are some advantages to deforestation. And then the second professor in the audio could be explaining how deforestation has negative impacts. And in your essay for task 1, you need to summarize it. You need to coherently explain what the first and second professor are talking about and have them integrated really well. And then task 2 for TOEFL is an academic discussion. You only have 10 minutes to write about 100 to 120 words, and you need to explain your opinion. Moving on to the reading section. In the IELTS reading section, you have 3 passages, each one 20 minutes long, so altogether it's an hour, and there are 40 questions. And there are a variety of questions. You can get multiple choice questions, true, false, not given questions, sentence completion questions. There is a lot that you would need to get used to. However, in the TOEFL, what's nice is you only get 2 passages. It is relatively short at 36 minutes, and for each passage there are 10 questions. So altogether, about 20 questions you will be answering, and what's even better is that these questions are all multiple choice. Of course, you get different types of multiple choice questions. They could be asking you on what the specific word means, so vocabulary type question. They can be asking you what the professor meant by this phrase. And again, you would need to choose A, B, C, or D. And in the listening section, the TOEFL is very similar with also multiple choice questions. You do have quite a few different audios to listen to. You have 2 conversations and 3 lectures, so altogether 5. And the audios aren't that long. You have quite a few questions, 5 questions for the conversations and 6 questions for the lectures. Altogether, it is again about 36 minutes long, but the timing could be very confusing, so be careful about that. But in the IELTS listening, it is longer and you answer as you listen. So in the TOEFL, you first listen and then you take some notes and then you answer afterwards. However, in the IELTS, they give you some time to look at the questions first, and then afterwards the audio plays and you answer as the audio is going through it. Again, just like the reading in IELTS, there is a variety of questions. So do make sure you get used to the questions in the IELTS if you end up choosing that exam. Moving on to the scoring system. The IELTS has a scoring system of band scores between 1 and 9, and you can get half points, so you can get 6.5, 8.5, and for each section you will have a score for each one. For speaking you might get a 7, for reading you might get a 7.5, for writing you might get a 6.5, and then you would also get your average score. In the TOEFL, the scoring system is up until 120, with each section being 30 points. So you might get 20 for writing, 16 for speaking, or 28 for reading, and then that would be added together to see your score out of 120. The TOEFL exam is more commonly used in the US and Canada. So if you're applying for universities in those countries or for work in those countries, they might specifically request the TOEFL. The IELTS is more situated for the UK or for other European countries. So if you plan to enroll in a university in Belgium or England, they might prefer the IELTS. However, most universities would accept both, and the scoring criteria might depend. Some universities ask for 110 for the TOEFL, while others might ask for just 90 to 100. Do double check with your university just to see how much they want from you. So now that we understand what each exam is about, which one is better? So again, it does depend on you as the student. Do you prefer following a set structure? Because the TOEFL has amazing templates and amazing structures. In the speaking section and the writing section, it's less free and less natural, and you can follow templates and structures to really help understand and put your thoughts in together. However, if you are a student who is more of a naturally good speaker, I would suggest the IELTS, because especially in the speaking, it's free. It's like a discussion, they're asking you questions, and it's pretty simple. In the writing as well, you are able to express your opinion more freely and do it the way you want. Of course, there are templates as well in the IELTS. However, the TOEFL is a lot more structured. For the reading and the listening, it can depend which one you prefer. I personally prefer the IELTS more, but some students might prefer the multiple choice sections of the TOEFL. The TOEFL is a lot shorter of an exam than the IELTS. The IELTS is longer, but that again will depend on you. How long can you focus? Some other key differences is in the IELTS, if you happen to pass the writing, the reading and the listening, but you kind of failed the speaking or you didn't get the score you needed, you are able to retake a specific section. I had a student recently who got the scores she needed in all of the sections except for writing. She needed a 7, but she got a 6.5. So she's redoing the writing section in about a month time, and we're able to focus fully on one section. That is something you can't do in the TOEFL. So altogether, that is the differences in which one you might prefer in 2025 between the IELTS or the TOEFL. If you have any further questions, perhaps that I didn't get to answer in this video, you're able to drop a comment below or message me on any of my social media.